Welcome to Unscripted Believe at Noon, the podcast on Noon Miracle where we sit down for real conversations that reveal the miracle in all of us. I'm your host, Amy Goldberg, joined by my amazing co-host, Jane Sibbett. And today we're excited to welcome our guest, Brianna Cutts. Each episode we get to know someone new, not just by what they do, but who they are. And by simply talking and listening, it's all about connection, curiosity, and discovering the magic that lives in all of us. So let's dive in. This is Believe at Noon. Well, first of all, Bree, welcome to Believe at Noon. We're thrilled that you're here.
Thanks so much for having me.
And interestingly, Jane and Bree know one another. And how Jane?
Brianna's my sister-in-law.
You are lucky. You two are very lucky to have one another.
I'm really, this is such a great occasion because I get to find out more about her that I've always wanted to know. So I'm grateful to you, Amy Goldberg, for allowing me to have a great conversation with you and this just inspired artist. So,
well, I can't wait to find out more about Bree. And so I'm going to ask this first question if I could. Bree, can you share a time when I guess inspiration totally caught you by surprise? Like, for instance, some kind of unexpected spark that shifted everything in you?
Oh, boy.
An easy question.
Well, going back to my childhood, maybe I'll just start there. Is that an okay
Please.
place? Okay, so I grew up in Southern California in Pasadena and Altadena, where the fires just were. And I went to a pretty, I guess, hippie school in the 1970s called Sequoia. And during summers, we would go to a camp called Zorthian's Ranch. And unfortunately, that just burned in the fires. Wow. But anyway, Mr. Zorthian was my first mentor. Unbeknownst to me, I was 7 years old. But this camp was very bohemian, pretty lawless. We took this really scary bus ride up the San Gabriel Mountains. And then he taught me things like how to remove a bee sting, how to throw a pot on a wheel, that you kicked, how to ride a horse. He was probably just shy of 5 feet tall, and his wife, Daphne, was like 6 feet tall, and she would sort of float around the camp. And anyway, he was just somebody, he's so seared in my memory. And I didn't realize how inspirational he was. And so we'll probably talk later about what I'm doing now about creating these pattern portraits. But I created a portrait to him called Bohemian Buzz. And long story short, it was 50 years later, I rented a little space in my hometown of San Anselmo, and I did a little pop-up. And I had a piece of fabric that was Bohemian Buzz. And one of his relatives walked by and saw it and saw my story, and I wrote a poem to him. And they reached out to his daughter and son, who are my camp counselors. And so I reconnected with them 50 years later. So anyway, I think to me, I didn't realize it at the time, how watching somebody, he I think had escaped the Armenian genocide, ended up at Yale. He drove around Pasadena with his pet pig. And so sometimes I would see him in his little, I think it was a Toyota. Anyway, he was just, I guess, larger than life for me. And to see such a free spirit that was valued in our community. Anyway, so that, for me, and it came back 50 years later.
The divine spark through, the thread coming through. Isn't it amazing when you go back and you look and you see, oh, there's the magic?
Yeah. And if I could talk to him, because this pattern, Bohemian Buzz, it's got a blue backdrop, which to me was being up in that ranch, looking up at the sky, which was, just blue sky. Then we would sit under the shade of olive trees. So I have kind of olive leaves abstracted. Then we would pluck pomegranates from the tree and peel them apart. And in my poem, I talk about how the juice carves pathways in our dusty skin. And then with the buzzing bees. So I have these sort of sprockets. So anyway, every time I talk about the pattern, the memory comes to life for me of just that. And I feel like he'd be the only one who I could really share it with. And he'd probably critique it. Well, I'm not sure that really reflects, bees or something.
Or he'd celebrate
So,
you that you have learned well from this masterful
and
life, huh?
maybe, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so that's, that, yeah. Amy, does that kind of answer a
Oh, that's
question?
fantastic. I mean, it's so rare to have somebody that you look up to at such an early age. That's incredible.
And that it's not like, I also grew up playing classical music. So when I was 4, I started the Suzuki method. And I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
know it, it's
yeah.
very
Ruby
rigid,
did.
right?
Yeah.
And so I definitely had quote unquote teachers and mentors through violin at 4, then piano, and then
Wow.
eventually cello, which I really kind of, there's my cello right there. But I quit at 17 because it was too much pressure. So like, I had people who were mentors in my life for a very kind of goal-driven creative outlet. But with the ranch or camp, Zorthian's camp, it was just really wide open, right? If you wanted to do pottery, you could. If you wanted to go ride horses, whatever. It was, and then in my career, I kind of veered into children's museums, and that's how I met Jane's brother, Donald, because we were both designing children's museums. And I really kind of got into the whole idea of, children directing their learning. When I was 22, I wanted to redesign every school in America. That was my dream.
A worthy dream.
That's how I felt about hospitals.
Oh, oh my
Right?
gosh.
Anything
Totally.
institutionalized, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
anyway, I learned quick that wasn't gonna happen. So anyway, quickly that was not going to happen. But anyway, yeah, so it's funny where mentors come from. They're kind of quiet mentors, I guess, where it's not really set up. It just sort of, it's kind of like alchemy. It just sort of happens.
You witnessed the way he was, but you turned it into poetry and you've turned it into museums and exhibits, and your artwork is just, I mean, there's nothing that Brianna does, or even her writing. There's nothing that she does that isn't pure poetry. It's just inspired the way that she works.
Yeah, I
I mean,
just need to
it came at such
finish
a young
things.
age.
Came at a
Such a
young
young
age.
age. Yeah,
It came at a young age, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
Wait, did you just say you wish that you could just finish it?
Well, like finish things, right? That's the whole thing. Everybody has like an idea. It's the implementation and the capture of it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the difference.
But look
So,
what you're doing with, well, can you tell us what you're doing right now? Because I know that you've been working and you've been designing children's museums with Don in the
yep.
Civic Group, but more.
So, yeah, and so children's museums are sort of what got us. I saw a sketch that he did. I don't know if I ever told you, Jane. He designed this water exhibit for a little children's museum in Berkeley. And I was in Southern California working at a children's museum, and the newsletter came in one day. And at the time, I was trying to figure out which grad school path to go, like design or sort of more theory. In the museum world, you kind of have to pick your path. So anyway, I would do these informational interviews, and I was always looking for people to do them with. So this sketch came in, and of course it's not signed because it's on this newsletter, but I called the museum and I was like, well, I don't want to rent your traveling exhibit, but I'd love to know who did the sketch. So
Oh,
it was your brother.
no
Wow.
kidding. Wait, how old are
Yeah.
you?
At that point, I was 25, I guess.
Amazing.
And then I called him and we had a talk. I thought he was like working for some big firm, and he picked up the phone. I was like, so anyway, then 2 years later, I finally got into grad school for museum studies, and I was teaching art through a museum, and the school district went on strike. So my 30 hours went down to 4, and I found my notes from talking to your brother, and I called him and I just said, hey, listen, I'm looking for work. And he's like, oh, perfect. So at that point, he was doing more natural history work, so
Mhm.
visitor centers, and then that's where we started. So we more visitor centers, like National Park Service stuff, and then history museums. So
And
that's
it,
kind of where we're.
yeah, and it's not even, when you say something like that, it can sound kind of, just for Amy in the audience, can sound a little stuffy, but it is
Yeah,
anything but. So,
right,
like, for instance, of all the projects
right.
that you and the Civic Group have worked on recently, What has moved you the most? Is it the Rockefeller
Yeah,
project?
that one was definitely you know, there was like a pressure cooker. So long story short, Amy, there's in Wyoming and Montana, right? There are two national parks. So Yellowstone National Park kind of is mostly in Montana, and then Grand Teton National Park is in Wyoming. And Grand Teton National Park came to be because of J.D. Rockefeller Jr. So, right, his dad had made a lot of money with Standard Oil, and then his son decided to really be a conservationist. And so he sort of privately purchased land in the Jackson Hole Valley to preserve it because those Grand Tetons are just so majestic. So anyway, the family held on to the first Dude Ranch in Jackson as a Western retreat. And then JDR Jr.'s son, Lawrence S. Rockefeller, had that for the family and decided at the end of his life he wanted to complete the gift his father started. And so he hired a team of designers. So we were one of many to remove these historic cabins from the land and put back a LEED Platinum visitor center that took people on a journey through habitats and emotionally connected them with nature. And
So
so we were the exhibit designers. And so the result is pretty cool. Like locals bring their friends there.
That's
So
amazing. So, and Bree,
yeah.
may I ask you, so first of all, I want to know what inspired you to do museum studies? I mean, it sounds like you were like almost I mean, you picked up instruments so quickly at a young age. Like, was that your parents' influence? Like, I want to kind of like take it back. Like, how did it all begin for you? Like you and what you're doing currently?
I so my family, let's just say I was the different one. So my dad's pretty much a rocket scientist. He's worked for NASA for 40 plus years.
he
Wow.
My
literally is a
mom,
rocket scientist.
yeah, my mom passed away, but she was an attorney. Um, the and then my sister, it's kind of a, brainiac. So I was sort of labeled different early on. And my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, my grandparents were in Hollywood. So I grew up in Pasadena. They were in Hollywood, and I spent pretty much every weekend with them. So my grandpa was Boris and my grandma was Doris. So
That's good.
um so anyway, my grandfather came from Georgia, the region in Russia, in 1917. And anyway, that's a whole other story. But he was a mechanical engineer who ended up working with modern architects in LA, including Richard Neutra, who was a pretty well-known architect and still today is admired. And so I would see my grandfather's drafting tools all the time, and I have some my aunt just gave me his all of his tools recently. And
Wow.
so like T-squares and triangles and brushes and things. And so yeah, I just really loved those types of tools. And I had probably like a lot of girls my age, but I had doll houses or a doll house. But I was also pretty mechanical. Like when I was 9 for my birthday, I asked for a vise. So,
You're like,
so
well,
I
who
could
doesn't?
so I could hold together my pieces. And things like I
That's
would
awesome.
build, like my mom would always say it was no surprise I went into museums because I can't remember. It must have been Sequoia School where we were learning about Roman history, and I was illustrating A2 Brute, right? And so literally I built a little diorama with a sword, and like, so just the murder of Caesar,
Yeah.
so yeah, I was always doing things in 3 dimension. And my parents were, despite their academia, they let me paint murals on my walls and be pretty creative. But because I had trouble reading as a kid, I was shifted to public school in 4th grade. And that kind of was like a really tough time for me. It was very rigid. It would Sequoia was, you could call teachers by their first name, really self-directed learning. And then you go into alphabetized seating, and it's a whole different, like, oh, and plus it was sort of like either you were gifted or you were not gifted, right? So I was in the non-gifted group. And but then I had music, right? So I had cello at that point. That's when in fourth grade where I found the cello, and I was good. I just didn't practice enough. So, but like I got an opportunity to go to a master class with Yo-Yo Ma at USC,
Wow, that's
Wow.
and
impressive.
right, and then I was invited to this music camp in Taos, New Mexico for a month. But I think I just frustrated my teachers because in the end, Amy and Jane, I really wanted to just be a backup cello for like New Order, the band,
That's
like,
great.
or Echo and the Bunnymen. Like
Yeah.
those, that's where I wanted to like have my music. And I had a synthesizer, and I would always like, play New Order music like by ear,
So what shifted from music to what you're doing now? I
Oh,
mean, tell
right.
us.
Somehow I got on a mailing list for Otis Parsons in LA.
Mm.
And one day I had this poster on my wall and noticed they had a pre-college intensive. And so I signed up. I asked my mom, and I think at that point she was looking for anything to get me out of the house. And so I took a pre-college intensive at Otis Parsons for a month
That's
in
great.
LA, driving my like 1969 Volvo down the 2 freeway. And
I think they
um,
still do that. Otis
yeah,
Parsons is what is so amazing about sending
yeah,
out their flyers. Because I
yeah.
remember getting those
So
in Northern
yeah,
California, right? They
yeah,
were
yeah.
effective.
And anyway, and I really just bonded. Again, I think that's when I had an exposure to other mentors that kind
Right.
of spoke my language. An interior architecture professor, John Mastic. I still remember his name.
Wow,
And
you
then,
truly are in
yeah,
flow, aren't you?
True.
You
I don't
True.
know.
you truly are. Like it's just an evolution, isn't it, through your creative work?
I mean, kind of, yeah. And I think the difference now is even though the reason I got into museums is that moment where I shifted to public schools, and not to diss public schools, but I
Oh,
think
right.
I really had a transition from not being excited about learning anymore when I went from like a very open kind of, I don't know, just supportive
Well,
learning
it just seems
environment.
so bizarre to me. I was just saying this the other day, how bizarre it is that here we are in institutions like in schools where we're told to sit quietly, not
Mhm.
move, and we're children. That's
Yeah,
the least favorite thing that we as humans, little kids want to do. We're so,
yeah.
we have lots of energy. And I just think that's kind of like, well, no wonder we didn't like school.
Well, it's based on a factory model, right?
Yeah.
Sir Ken Robinson did this amazing TED talk about
I
the
heard he was
yes,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yes.
he maps it out, and he's basically saying it's just based on we educate in batches, right?
Absolutely.
So um, for instance, in children's museums, they kind of, or at least the ones I was in, really got inspired by an Italian theory or approach called Reggio Emilia that spun out from a gentleman named Loris Malaguzzi after World War II. And so, all the schools were gone, right? And so this is where also in London where we had what was oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name, but where they were adventure playgrounds that really came out of the rubble. You see this whole post World War II way of learning,
Right.
which I don't know, just these quiet giants, these people emerged who are really
Like
trying to
Steiner and
figure out, yeah,
yeah,
exactly, like
Montessori.
how do you make
Yeah,
lemonade out of
Montessori.
lemons, kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Wow.
So anyway, the Reggio Emilia is the 100 languages of children. And so it's really about asking children, like, where does rain come from? And if they draw a machine in the sky, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Like
connecting.
technically it is a machine in the sky.
When
Go
there's
ahead.
there's something that Brianna had showed me a couple of years ago about a book that she was working on that is again along this thread too, Brianna, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Can you explain a bit of that and bring it, and we're bringing it obviously to
sure.
your patterns in your studio as
Right.
well, but how
Yep.
her brain is so, can you talk about it?
Yeah, this is one of those projects I didn't finish.
It's
Um,
almost there.
almost.
It just needs the publisher. That's it.
So, right. Okay, so I'll back up a little bit. So my mom passed away from pancreatic cancer, and that was a really rough time because that illness comes up very quickly. She had always talked about retiring. She kind of felt sort of suffocated by her work and her job. So anyway, I at the time was working in a children's museum, And what we were talking about was for children, we were developing a Center for Childhood Creativity. That's really what our charge was. And we were talking about how for children, play is work. So like they might just be sweeping or arranging blocks, but for children, that is work. And to really look at that as a way of constructing knowledge, that they're building these skills. And so anyway, my mom passed away during that whole time, and I'm driving to work one day, and a gentleman's walking toward me, and he has a shirt on that says "Work kills." I was like, yeah, no duh. And so it got me thinking about, okay, so what does work look like for children? And I realized it was where they're constantly bending the rules. So like playing with their food, right? Running around naked, uh, throwing a tantrum, and so I started working on this book called Bend Your Rules. And it's divided into think, act, and feel, sort of the behavioral, like how cognitive, behavioral, and social emotional. And so, like, for instance, play with your food. One of the stories I found was Eero Saarinen when he was designing the TWA terminal at JFK. It's the 60s, right? TWA has come to him and said, we want a building in flight. There's no CAD, everybody's drawing stuff. And so he's stumped. Like, how do I make a building in flight? So one morning at breakfast, he's eating a grapefruit and he gets the fruit out and he starts playing with the rind. And he turns it over and presses his finger in. And he realizes if he puts the roof down, it buttresses the walls. And literally, as the story goes, he runs to his office and he shows everybody the solution. So, and then just another, I think everybody probably knows this one. Well, I mean, Julia Child, right? Make a Mess is another one. Remember how in her shows she would always like, ha, 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 she'd drop an egg or whatever, and it's like no big deal. And then Salvador Dali, he would get into this hypnagogic state, right? He would sit in a chair with a spoon in his hand and a metal bowl at his feet. And as he fell asleep, the spoon would drop and clank in the bowl and wake him. And he kept doing that until he achieved this hypnagogic state. So anyway, the whole idea of take a nap. So
and then so Bree,
yeah.
how does that influence your work? Like what inspires you? I think we go back. I want to go back to the patterns, what you're creating right
Yes.
now, and
Right.
how does that
So
work for you?
so in my like museum world, what I have to do is with museums, they at any point have only 2 to 10% of their collection on view. So we're not necessarily curating shows at the Met or MoMA or anything. We're taking interpretive content. So we're taking like a giant story and whittling it down. We're synthesizing. And that, like, some of my colleagues say to me, wow, your superpower is synthesis, and it is true. Like, I can lead a brainstorming session with like 500 post-it notes, and I can see the patterns. And
Wow.
my job is to, without telling people the patterns, I lead them to the patterns, right? So I'm like, I'm noting some relationship. And then as you show people how to do that, then that's my like favorite thing, is to show people how to synthesize. So anyway, with like, for instance, boiling down a childhood behavior, like where we would say, oh my God, my kid tore apart the bedroom. It's like, I know, but so that's make a mess, right? That is what they're doing. And let's look at that in like, for instance, Julia Child, right? She makes a mess, but look at what it does. And so what I tried to do was just map really simple behaviors onto stories of adults. And that kind of went to what I'm doing now. So it's not a total bridge, but where I'm taking a story of a person's life and I'm whittling it down to a pattern. It's an abstract pattern. So like Mr. Zorathian, right? Bohemian Buzz, his
And are these
portrait
well-known
is a
people?
pattern.
Like you're doing the history? Are these well-known
Some
people
of them
that
are.
you study and then?
Yeah, some of them are well known.
Like what would Jane's pattern be?
Well, see, this is the whole thing. I'm
Oh.
only working on people who, let's just say, their story is finished. Does that make sense?
Okay,
Like,
gotcha.
it's posthumous.
Gotcha.
I did actually do one for someone who's alive. Okay. So I have a little studio at this place called The Ranch, which is in Marin County in Fairfax. And one day we had a singing duo, a husband and wife. She had the most amazing, amazing voice, but what was most incredible was her laugh. And she has that kind of laugh that people tease her about, but I
Mhm.
just thought it was the most beautiful thing. And so I painted a portrait of her, and it's titled "Her Laugh Sings Like a Bird."
Oh,
Mm.
And so anyway, and it's got 5 bars, like 5 bars of music, and then the notes kind of go diagonally up the piece. So
great.
so anyway,
That's
that's yeah.
fabulous.
And then yeah, but here's an example. These are kind of quiet giants who their story is kind of tragic and inspiring at the same time. So the author of Goodnight Moon, Margaret Wise Brown, when she first published Goodnight Moon, it was banned by the New York City librarian.
Hmm.
And the reason was it was just too nostalgic and kind of, gooey, right? And I think that was probably the time of like Grimm's fairy tales where it was sort
Mm.
of like you misbehave and the wolf will eat you, right? Kind of threatening
Banned
literature.
for gentleness instead.
Yes. So
Wow,
anyway,
amazing.
my ode to her is Goodnight Nemesis,
Mm.
because in the end, it's like this incredible book, and she may not have totally seen that in her lifetime, but I think getting that story out there is important. And so, yeah, and there are other ones that I've done that are like Ennio Morricone, a composer of spaghetti westerns. My
My
celebration of
favorites.
him is Giddy Up.
That's
So
hilarious. And are you having fun?
yes,
Good.
yes. Yeah, I had actually done like a little outline for our talk, and I, I sort of talked about like sometimes, and I think all of us do, we kind of toggle between dread and delight. And sometimes in my day job, designing museums and exhibits is very cool, right? The thing is, the margins have always been tight with funding.
Mhm.
And these days, and even after COVID, I started joking that I'm the Department of Disappointment.
Oh,
And
What's your
no.
so I
what's
know,
your day job?
well, designing museums is my day job. So
Oh, that's
Monday
your
through
that's
Thursday,
me. Wow, that's like
and then Friday,
impressive.
Saturday, Sunday, I'm at the studio in the ranch. So I feel like I'm in my 20s again, when
It's
you like work
amazing.
3 jobs to like
Yes.
pay rent.
Uh,
Oh,
she has this beautiful studio, and in it she has video and besides her artwork on the walls and a working studio where you can actually see her doing her prints. I mean, it's phenomenally moving for me to see a full-on playground in your studio. Just not only
so
the beauty
yeah.
but the storytelling too. Is You're an
Yes.
amazing storyteller. Is
Oh.
Really, truly. I feel like, isn't that your byline? Isn't there something like that?
Oh, we make it. That's on our civic group website. Yeah. Oh, it's something about stories. You think I would remember it because whatever,
No,
did
no,
it
no, but
8,000
Wow.
times.
We have to have a part two. We have to, I mean, we
Oh,
just touched the surface. And I mean,
um,
first of all, thank you so much for being on
oh
Believe
yeah,
at
Amy,
Noon.
thanks so much.
And I'm just wondering too, like, would it be really cool to see some of your work on Noon
yes,
Miracle?
yes,
You know,
Sure. Yeah.
yes. I've actually,
maybe inspire.
and it's not that we're putting you on the spot, but we very
We
much
are.
would love to. We are absolutely putting you on the spot. We would love if we could put just a few things up on
Sure.
Numerical so people can see and maybe even figure out how to get your video up there too,
Yeah.
your process.
Yeah. However, yeah, I mean, there were sometimes people come in and they're like, that's a portrait? I don't see the face. And
Huh.
I'm like, well, it's an abstract portrait.
Yeah. It's called modern art. It's
Yeah.
storytelling in a different way. It's making your mind work.
Picasso, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the thing is, though, is that once I start talking about it, people can stay in my studio for like an hour,
Yeah.
So it's
She's got a
anyway.
little fire in there and everything.
Oh
That's
yeah. I had a
fantastic.
fake fire
There's a
in
little
there.
fake fire in her
We
studio.
had a little visitor that time, Jane. Remember?
We did. A little nature coming in from the
I
outside.
bet.
Anyway, it's very rustic.
Had to go back
studio.
to your original ranch.
Yes.
You had
So
to-
anyway, but
Wow.
thank you guys so much for talking. This is fun to just like talk about fun things with fun people.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Brianna. It's really such a pleasure, and I'm so inspired. I went on. If anyone check out your Instagram, I was looking at some of the prints that you were doing.
Yeah.
On was
Yeah.
it Bree? Is it Bree Cuts?
Yeah. What is it?
Bree
Yeah, I've
Cuts.
been kind of,
Bree Cuts,
yeah, I
right?
think it's
Bree Cuts on
Bree Cuts.
Instagram.
Yeah,
Yes.
Cutts Studios, maybe. No, Bree Cuts. I
Uh,
think.
at Bree Cuts, yeah, at BREECUTTS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. The
Instagram.
whole marketing business side of the art thing, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Still working on that.
You're actually really good at it. Yeah, your ears must have
Oh.
been burning this morning because I was just
Oh, I
saying
saw
to
it,
your
yeah.
niece how much I love your work, and had she
Oh,
seen it recently, so she was
thank
looking
you.
forward to
Really
looking.
great.
Yeah.
Just
Thanks
gorgeous.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I'm so glad you're here.
All right.
See you
I
soon.
know. Thanks so much, Jane, for having me. That was fun. I love hearing your laugh.
Exactly.
It's not quite
Amy,
a
great
bird.
to meet you too.
You
It's not
too.
quite, well, it's
Thanks,
close.
Bree.